95% of all investors don't know this about HBAR, and today I'm going to tell you what that is and why it is significant in the future price appreciation of the HBAR token. Guys, you're not going to want to miss this one. It's jam-packed full of information. You're going to learn a hell of a lot about not just HBAR, but also how they're making money and how the price will actually go up. It's significant, right? And I kind of wanted to make this video off the back of the recent quant news because while this is going to be somewhat different to the actual quant news, obviously that was a little bit different through a direct partnership and undertaking of a project, but this is more steady, gradual, but it's already starting to prove significant. Let me explain, okay? And before I do, I want to say, I can just see a lot of you guys in the comments, right? A lot of you guys that are just kind of, average crypto investors. You're here for the money, period. That's just it, right? And I can hear what you're saying. We know everything about, HBAR already. We've seen all the YouTubers. You speak about HBAR twice, 3 times a week. What else is there to know? I know, enterprise grade, right? HEDERA token service / the consensus service. Governing council is awesome, right? It's fast, secure, scalable, and low energy. Cool. Okay, sure. But do you really know everything there is about HBAR? I'm going to guess some of you, most of you, again, 95% don't, okay? So what this news is going to stem from is the chart behind me. Now, all of this, in my opinion, is a formula, okay? It's starting to prove it is underway. So what is the formula? Well, it's more or less like a funnel, okay? So we start off with things that create demand for a protocol, okay? Now, for HEDERA, there's quite a lot. It's essentially a general purpose blockchain, but it's not, obviously it's a hash graph, but it's beautiful because it can be. It's the only hash graph, and therefore it allows a lot more complex things to happen that you can't typically do on a blockchain without sacrificing some form of the scalability trilemma or just opening yourself up to a whole host of potential mishaps, okay? So tokenization, NFT, interoperability, supply chain management, gaming, HEDERA consensus service. So this is like the enterprise market. That's what I kind of mean in that sense. HEDERA Guardian, which I'm going to talk about today, which is new, and a hell of a lot more. Again, their general purpose, right? But essentially, this is the top, right? You add all these things up, and what do we get? We get demand. And right now, it's the 1,000 TPS, guys. Right now. As a matter of fact, it's over. Okay, and if we actually compare that in a minute with some other networks out there, you're going to begin to realize, okay, something is up. This is a lot more than other networks, okay? It's going to make sense. Now, what do we get from token demand? What does this really mean? Well, it really means we're getting token fees or absorption, right? So from all this demand, there's going to be fees on the network, of course, and what these fees mean to the untrained eye is essentially it's just like the network making money, okay? But the way it diversifies, the way it absorbs these fees and makes that money can actually be very good. Essentially, this is what blows the price up, okay? Because when the token gets absorbed from these fees because of the usage, aka demand, well, it does take the tokens out of circulation, therefore it appreciates the price. So we're going to talk about that a bit more in detail. So if you want the proof, if you're like, this dude's talking a whole bunch of nonsense, what's he talking about HBAR over 1,000 TPS? Well, look, every blockchain out there, every cryptocurrency, layer 1, layer 2, whatever it might be, they claim they can do X amount of TPS. We've all heard it. It's pretty much common nowadays. Everyone's infinitely scalable, okay? But a lot of these networks that say they can do tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of TPS, they really aren't, okay? Let's have a look here. So HBAR is at 1,000, I took the screenshot today, 1,300 TPS, actual TPS, not like Solana where it, accounts for all the messaging between the nodes. This is actual running TPS, okay? And if we compare this, again, I've tracked this all today, some of these other large networks, Algorand, Matic, AVAX, Stellar, ADA, and BNB. Have a look, see it for yourself, guys. They're a hell of a lot lower, orders of magnitude less. So something's up. All right, and it's sustained. It typically goes anywhere between 400 to about 2,000 on the high side, but it's definitely sustained. That's still a lot than these. So again, there's something brewing here. Now, if we have a look at the recent influx, look at this. The interesting thing is, back in December of last year, guys, what in the earth? 19 million transactions just for that month, and look at us blow up here at the first of this year. Right? January, 790 effing million. Okay? February, 1.2, 1.5, 1.7, 2.3. Now, we're about halfway through June, and we're probably going to end up eclipsing that again. So you compare this to December, and you begin to realize, oh my God, okay? Something is happening here. So I'm going to get to what is actually happening and how this is going to have a massive effect, kind of like a snowball rolling in the mountain effect coming into 2025's bull market, all right? And so people aren't realizing this. Again, the writing's on the freaking walls, guys. I'd like to briefly interrupt and just say, if you are liking the video so far, if I am providing you value, to please take the time to just quickly like the video. And also, if you really do enjoy what I say and my content in general, please hit the subscribe button. I post a video every single day, and there is 2 videos a day coming very soon. Thank you so much. Back to the video. Average fee right now, again, let's just work out how much money they're actually making here. Again, this does vary, but typically it's about 1/100 of a cent or thereabouts, right? So let me come over here. 1.5 billion transactions every month on average. I'm obviously taking this from this year alone. So it's about 1.5 billion on the average here. And that's about $150,000 in just fees every single month. Again, on average, this is going to continue going up. That is massive. You compare this to other networks. Other networks don't make this in half a year. Okay, so something's happening here. Again, we're going to cycle back into where that money is actually dripping into in just a moment. But first, we need to think to ourselves, okay, all these transactions are happening on the network. Sure, that's being absorbed. Money is kind of insignificant right now, as long as those coins are going out of circulation and going somewhere to be stored for a while. Cool. But what does this really mean? Well, why are all these transactions happening and so frequently too and sustained? Well, this is what we need to know. Again, you can look at quant and, use that writing on the wall to kind of devise, hey, something's happening. Maybe we should look into this a little bit because we don't want to be caught buying HBAR when it starts pumping from all of the potential connections it's making in the back end. All right. And again, all the connections like these. Now, these are the governing council members, but as we're going to see in just a second with this particular guy, they're more than just governing council members. They're with HEDERA for a reason. Okay, because a governing council member isn't just someone running a node. It's more intimate than that. Unlike other networks that might have a significant name brand, running a node on the network, cool. That doesn't really mean all that too much. Obviously, it shows some interest, but governing council, they're more involved. Now, let's divulge first where it possibly could be coming from. Now, I'm going to strictly be looking into some of the more recent updates with HEDERA, okay? Now, one of them isn't really new, if you will, but it's going to give us a good indication as to where this is coming from, okay? And just with the select few of these partners, you can see why the TPS is so high. So you can only imagine when we start getting more and more and more into the future, right? So we have, again, all the rough kind of narratives that HEDERA can kind of claim, okay? But again, we're going to look into these 3: tokenization, supply chain, and what's called HEDERA Guardian. So first of all, tokenization, right? This is a huge industry. As we can see here, Boston Dynamics, which is a very large company, they actually predicted that the tokenization market will hit $16.1 trillion in 2030. And now, what is tokenization? Well, tokenization, you can pretty much get any sort of real world asset and then put it on the blockchain, essentially, like you're tokenizing it, okay? That's things like precious metal, art, which we're already seeing right now, okay? Funding, like providing liquidity for, liquidity rounds, seed rounds, certificates, real estate, loans, insurance, and fractional ownership, okay? So where is this taking us? Well, a recent partnership with Red Swan CRE is kind of like, well, these guys are one of the pioneers in the tokenization of the real estate market. HEDERA is also partnered with another company also doing commercial real estate as well. Actually residential/commercial real estate. So that's also some big news, but we'll talk about this one because this one is the real big player. So specifically CRE in this case, or commercial real estate/businesses, if you don't know what commercial means, right? Reducing the typical large barrier to entry for this kind of investing. This is done by fractionalizing the asset. So as most of you should know, with real estate, especially commercial, you have to have a large down payment, and even at that, it's like 50% typically of the actual property itself, or the commercial, the business, if you will, and that 50% or whatever it might be is typically like millions of dollars because you're typically buying a commercial or a business, right? So yeah, it's quite expensive. And so doing this, tokenizing it and then fractionalizing it, you can actually get into a very expensive or, sort of prominent market, right? Or business itself at like $25,000 opposed to a couple $1 million. So yeah, you're getting a bit of the property itself. You don't own the whole thing, but in a way you still get the dividends back, which is pretty cool, right? So it is a massive company. Red Swan, if you haven't heard of them, has a total of $5 billion in tokenized assets under management. They've been operating for 65 years, and they actually have mentioned they're looking to increase their AUM, assets under management, to $25 billion in approximately 36 months. That's amazing. And again, they're, only using HEDERA in this case to process all of these transactions and things like that. So the bigger these guys get, the more demand that HBAR obviously picks up, okay? So that's some big stuff, but now we'll look at something just as, if not bigger, which is supply chain. Now, supply chain is probably more important for token absorption because as long as it runs through the HEDERA system, the network, obviously this is things like IoT, for example, right? So we're talking about, thousands of transactions a second, if not a lot more, okay? So what is the supply chain market? Well, essentially, it's expected to rise to $44.1 billion in 2030. And what happens here is, essentially, supply chain is the planning, controlling, and execution of this process, okay? So they manage this whole process, which is collecting the materials, right? Acquisition, then producing it, and then distributing it, right? So essentially, the project we're going to look at today is HEDERA.io. Now, you know how before I mentioned that the governing council members are more intimate with HEDERA than just like other networks might be with just nodes, for example? Well, this project here actually came out of Avery Dennison, one of the largest sort of governing council members on HEDERA. Again, this was a direct product from Avery Dennison itself. It's not like a spin-off or they weren't funding it. It's actually from Avery Dennison, okay? And these guys work in the supply chain sector because Avery Dennison is itself a very supply chain RFID-based company, and this just complements it, okay? So pretty much allows everyone to source the materials that were collected right through to the delivery and everything in between of a product. So you can, you can track if it's been reliably sourced and if it fits all your sort of needs in terms of, if it's environmentally friendly or whatever it might be, okay? So HEDERA is actually pushing a lot of the TPS, I believe, on HBAR right now, okay? So cloud-based traceability, that's what this essentially is. So before, actually, we'll go back. If you can see here, there's two sections of this, right? We have on-premises and cloud-based in the light blue, okay? And that's where kind of HEDERA is. Now, HEDERA assigns unique digital IDs to items, enabling comprehensive tracking from source to consumer, thereby promoting sustainability, okay? Kind of what I explained just then. Again, from Avery Dennison. So HEDERA was created by a governing council member, Avery Dennison, proving why these connections are important. So yeah, I don't want to kind of linger on this point too much. You guys are probably sick of me talking about it. But you can imagine, again, in 5, 10, 15 years, God knows how long it might take, but they might leverage Google, for example, or one of the other partners, Ubisoft, Boeing. And you can imagine connecting themselves with Boeing and then tracking having all the instruments in those aircraft flowing through HEDERA. Okay, so this can be very endless, right? So there's a lot to happen here. Now, this is what I was saying before about statistics, okay? And how I believe HEDERA is probably using a lot of that TPS up because they have 22 billion items that have so far been connected to the cloud and 300 plus are added every single second. So yeah, you can see why one single connection, one single partner, I don't know how in-depth they are with HEDERA and how much they use the public infrastructure, but nevertheless, as long as they use HEDERA, whether that's the consensus service or not, it still uses the HBAR token. So you can see why a very small connection like this, and when I say small, I mean HEDERA itself, not Avery Dennison, bolsters that absorption up quite a lot. So you can imagine when we start getting some more of these players involved, and again, remember, HBAR already has the connections with these people, okay? Now, I want to finalize the sort of third prong here and talk about the Guardian. This is a very new upgrade from HBAR, and it enables a digital-first sustainability policy and what's called a DMRV, or Digital Measurement, Reporting, and Verification Requirements, okay? This is all very new. What that kind of lingo means is basically it keeps track of sustainability solutions on the public ledger, keyword there, public ledger, for all to verify and leverage, okay? So what happens here is you can create ESG assets, that's environmental, social, and governance, but emphasis on the environmental here. So that's things like carbon credits, offsets meaning like anything renewable, so you have solar and wind, for example, and all this information can be pushed through to the public ledger, specifically the public ledger, because then this is what will enable people to verify companies using offsets or credits all on chain. So we can then go ahead as the public or as other companies and go, hey, look, Coca-Cola, they're doing everything on the public ledger. It's all recorded. Obviously, it's immutable and it's factual. Then so, hey, maybe we should go and buy some more Coke, or maybe a new company wants to then partner with Coke, or vice versa. You guys get the idea, right? So this is a direct quote from HBAR themselves. Transparency and access to data and information are essential for these markets, which is the ESG markets, to function properly. So they're pretty much, what they're doing here is making a very transparent and accessible place that these people over here, right, can leverage these ESG assets. So that's things like, people that want to track a company's ESG compliance, whether that's for personal reasons or for a business reason, and also account for the emissions to enable carbon reductions, okay? So this is things like applications or dApps that can go ahead and take this information and turn it into a product or something of the sort, okay? Essentially, anything on the public ledger can then be repurposed and used by other networks. So you might be thinking to yourself, Kyron, okay, you've just spat a whole bunch of really cool, interesting information. Maybe you know a lot about this already. Maybe it's the first time you've heard about this. And in that case, I'm really happy I've provided it to you. But again, what does this all mean? Well, we all know it's about demand, right? And that's the whole key here. And I think, again, I like using the realization of quant network, okay? Because that was a time, again, a few days ago where I went, okay, I knew this was happening, okay? I knew these things were in place, and yet here I was not taking full advantage. And I'm not going to let anyone, tell me anymore, oh, you're talking too much about a project, or you're looking too far into XYZ project, in this case, HEDERA. You're looking too far into this. I'm going to, no. Because the writing's on the wall. If you guys have seen how much they've increased in the last 6 months in terms of their monthly growth and transactions, and you see how much they've been sustaining, you can see their partners. So what the hell does this all mean? Guys, I'm telling you right now, demand is coming. It is coming. Now, this last slide is an imperative one for you and I to just assess for a second. Because as bullish as all this information is, at the end of the day, guys, we've spoken about this. We know there's heaps of demand. We know there's absorption via the fees. Again, pretty effective, only 1/10, or I think I said 1/100% before. Nevertheless, it's pretty good absorption. But where's it all going? Okay, where is it all going? If they were burning 100% of the transactions, we could sit here and go, hey, look at this. HBAR is burning $150,000 worth of transactions every single month. Awesome. But they're not, okay? This is the one thing I have to say. Right now, it's a bit concerning. So as of right now, all of these transactions are going to pay the nodes. The nodes only make money on HEDERA via processing transactions. They don't make money any other way, okay? I heard this from the team themselves. This does prove it, of course, as well. So this is your HEDERA account. This is your transaction here. It typically, or at least will in future, be split 3 ways, but it'll always be 50% split into the node. Right now, it's 100%, okay? So the node that accurately or, pushes that transaction to the network gets paid the whole fee right now. And, who are all the nodes on the network? Well, you have your 39 governing council members. Right now, it's like 29, right? So this water droplet, the extracted value, is being sent to the governing council nodes, which, as we know, are those big entities. And as we know, they are probably not going to be selling their HBAR, but still, all of that demand and volume is going into essentially centralizing the network further. So I want to make that point very clear, but HEDERA does have a very good, the weighted consensus structure is quite good. You can only have a certain amount of staked tokens. Any more tokens you have staked on top of that doesn't count, okay? So, but essentially they're still collecting HBAR tokens at the end of the day. They're still liquid tokens. So it's something to keep in mind. Now, obviously HEDERA is planning to further decentralize the network. Right now it's a public permission network. They were planning to make it in a few years a fully public permissionless network, but that's been pushed back quite a bit for God knows how long, okay? So again, there's always 2 sides to every story. Nevertheless, until these guys sell, these tokens are out of circulation, therefore pushing the price up. Again, this is something you have to look at in the long term, but I guess that's something that we can all observe as the time progresses. Either way, I hope you have enjoyed today's video. Again, this is something that not many people understand, so you're one of the lucky ones. And yeah, if you guys want more information on HEDERA, well, don't worry, because I have plenty of videos. This is one of the 20 I have on my channel. And if not, if you want to see me build a portfolio with the HBAR token itself, then watch the video on your right. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to talking to you all soon.